Good evening. Welcome to New Tracks. My name is Jim Kello, and I'm your host for this evening. New Tracks is where mentors help modelers build. Our goal is to encourage model building and help modelers like you develop the modeling skills, techniques, and most importantly, the confidence every one of us needs to build the models we really want. We want you to experience the thrill of saying, I built that. On each New Track show, the best model railroaders demonstrate innovative new products, modeling techniques, new technology, and answer your modeling questions. New Tracks is a great opportunity to have talented modelers become your mentors. If you're new to the show, welcome. If you've been with us before, welcome back. We hope all of you come back often and tell your friends to join us. We currently have over 1,000 subscribers on either our website or our YouTube channel. We hope that you'll become a subscriber. And on YouTube, all you have to do is go to our channel, New Tracks Modeling, and click on the subscribe button, ring the bell, and check all. You'll receive all the notices for the future shows and the login links. We currently have over 300 YouTube videos that you're also able to see a lot of the past shows. On Zoom, you can watch, ask questions, speak to other modelers, show your modeling live, and participate in the lively after show. To join on Zoom, all you have to do is go to our website, newtracksmodeling.com, check subscribe. You'll get an email from the website. You'll confirm the email, then you're officially subscribed and you'll get all of the future notices. Please feel free to share the login links that you receive either on Zoom or YouTube with your friends and encourage them to join us and participate in our shows. Finally, if you want to be a guest presenter and show your models and techniques, we have several ways that you can do that. Send me an email to Jim Kello at newtracksmodeling.com and let's discuss. I really prefer the telephone for something like this. And if you'll send me your telephone number in that email, I'll give you a call back. Or if you'd like to donate a little bit of your time and volunteer to help us with our events or our YouTube video productions or the website, or just to give us ideas for future shows, please send me an email about this to the same address. Well, thanks so much for being here tonight. Now let's get on with tonight's show. Well, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody. I hope this holiday season is very, very favorable for you and you have a just great time. We have some build-alongs coming up that I'd like to mention to you to make sure that you can order the models in time to participate. On February the 9th, Paul Reeves, who's the owner of Kershaw Models, is teaming up with Martin Breckfield MMR on the Stanswick bar kit that he produces. On February the 23rd, Bruce Nicholson, the owner of Seaport Modelworks, is going to start building his kit, which is a 53-foot coastal steam passenger ferry in HO scale. And we've got more to come after that. In May, Chris Corse, who you all know, of Conowingo Models, is going to start building his kit of the Kello trolley station. And I'm looking forward to seeing that naturally. Well, let me turn now to Paul Thomson for our quick tip of the evening. Paul?
Great, thank you, Jim. And just let me get my screen going here. Okay, tonight's quick tip is just a bit of a reminder, and most of the advanced modelers will know this, but wire, of course, comes in several sizes. as you can see, that goes from small to large. And what I wanted to point out to a few of the people that are just starting out or that kind of thing is wire strippers. And you can get them at Home Depot, but you've got to be aware of the fact that some are larger than others. And even though they look the same, they're not. And so here's sort of a brief overview. What you're looking for is the wire gauge. The smaller the number, the larger the wire. So here we go from 10 to 20, as you can see. And that gives you this kind of a hole size. And for modeling work, a lot of times it's advantageous to go from a wire gauge of 22 to 30. And that starts to look like this. And if you're using too big a wire stripper, you're going to be frustrated in not getting all the insulation off. And if you're using one that's too small, then you're going to be cutting into your wire and doing damage to your electrical circuits. So it's just something to bear in mind. All of this stuff is available, I think, at the types of things like Home Depot, etc. Just a bit of a quick review. And I hope you all catch on and have a Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. We really do appreciate it. Well, now I'd like to change up a little bit from our normal procedure and go immediately to our featured modeler, who is PPD Scotland. And one of the co-owners is John McCartan. And the reason I'm doing this is because John lives in Scotland. And it's a totally different time zone over there than it is here. So we're interfering with his normal bedtime. John, I can't thank you enough for being here this evening, and welcome.
Thanks very much.
Well, I've had several people tell me about your company and the great product and the great service that you offer. So if you could maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and what your company provides.
Yeah, sure. We're, as Jim says, a photo etching company. And we've been involved in the model railroads market for many, many, many years. It was my mum and dad that started the business in the late 70s. And his enthusiasm for models came about by his enthusiasm for photography. And he was a keen railway photographer. And he lived in Glasgow, and he was friendly with some of the signalmen at the time, and they would let him up into the signal box and take some pictures of trains. And then as he got older, he thought about he would quite like to get into it a bit more, and thought of an idea of making his million by making little nameplates for model locos. And he sort of wasn't sure how to do this, but he looked at the different technologies that are available, and photo etching became the one that he chose. And from that little embryo of thought, that the company PPD was formed. So that's just a wee bit of an intro as to where we are. Myself, my brother, we run the company, and my wife's also involved in all the sort of CAD stuff as well. So it is still very much a family business.
Well, John, you know, I've had, as I say, I've had several modelers recommend your company to me. And from what I understand, they really enjoy working with you. How does a modeler start working with you? A lot of people may never have tried to get parts etched before. How do you go about doing this?
Well, I mean, I've got a presentation that I can start on shortly, but I mean, just briefly, it all starts with the artwork. And in days of old, we would be expecting drawn artwork on card or paper or something, but those days are really, really long gone. But we do still occasionally get people that are what we term old school. And so really really the preference is definitely to have somebody do some CAD work. So take your idea, your concept, whatever you're looking for, and get somebody to draw it for you in a digital format. And so all of our jobs start off with an email with an attachment of the CAD file. And then from there, there's a bit of a sort of rapport between the customer and us, just to make sure that the formats are good, we understand exactly what you're looking for. And then we take it from there. And some people who are really get what the drawings need to be, they just bang files into us. We understand what they're going for. We find out what the material is, what the thickness is, and the number of sheets that are required. Sometimes it's only one. It's not a problem. And then we sort of get the parts manufactured and send them out.
Well, let me let you go into your presentation, and I'll just be quiet for a while.
Right, I'll just hit my share screen. Share. Okay, is that being seen by everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good. Right. Okay. So what we've got really just we've already gone over sort of bit of the introduction. So I'll get fired straight into the next slide. So just briefly, just to sort of recap that, pretty much what we do is it's a bespoke service. So, somebody will come to us with their drawings and we will make it for them. There are a few parts that we make as stock material, but more often than not, it is pretty much bespoke work that we do on both the photo etching and the laser cutting side of things. So we're on the west coast of Scotland. We're about a couple of hours drive from Glasgow, which I guess made the news recently with the COP26 summit. But so we're on the west coast, and we employ 14 people in Lochilphead here, and the company's about 40 years old or so. So over the years, we've had to really develop into different sectors to make the business viable. And so we are involved in automotive and engineering. We work with some prototype companies, and then there's the main sort of model hobby market, which includes obviously your guys, the model railroad, but also some of the military, aviation, and boats. The other industry that more recently we've been involved in is the film industry, and that can be quite interesting. It can sometimes be a bit intense, because if they've got a film shoot, the next day, then it can get all a bit angsty quite quickly. But for most of the time, we get just enough time to manufacture the parts. And then the last sector that we're involved in is into the jewelry trade. So let me just see, we're looking at, yeah, so we'll move on to the next one. So main topics tonight, really, I've covered this just very slightly, just we need the CAD drawing. And as I said, we really do need it in a digital format. I can go through all the different sort of file types and stuff later on, but artwork preparation for etching and lasering, they are different depending on what you're doing, but we're going to be focusing more obviously on the etching. And I'll show you what a sort of photo tool looks like. And that's a piece of film that we use to transfer the CAD image onto the metal. And then there's a shot of the parts as they're sort of just finished etching, and to give us the final product. Now, we're a member of a group called the PCMI, and they made this fantastic little video. It's animated, there is a voiceover on it that starts about 30 seconds in, but it just gives you a visual idea about what the etching process, how it works. So it lasts for 3 minutes. So if you can sort of bear with me, I'll be quiet for 3 minutes, and then I'll get this video started.
The first thing that needs to happen for a part to be chemically etched is for there to be artwork generated. Drawings are taken from computer data and photo plotted onto film, creating areas on the film that are either black or clear. Depending on the type of photoresist being used, either the clear areas or the black areas will be the image of the desired part. Generally, there are 2 pieces of film created that are aligned precisely front to back. Metal is then selected, then sheets are cut to match the size of the film created. The metal is then cleaned to remove any residual oils and oxides. It is very important to have clean surfaces on the metal to make sure the resist that will be applied will adhere successfully. The sheets are then coated with the photosensitive resist. The resist is sensitive to UV light and resistant to acid. After the resist is applied, the material is then placed between the 2 pieces of artwork that have been created. The resist-covered sheet is then exposed to UV light to create the desired image on the coated metal. Generally, where the light shines through the clear areas of the film, the resist is exposed and becomes hardened. Where the resist is shielded from the light by the black areas of the film, the resist remains soft. After exposure to the UV light, the sheets are put through a developer where the soft resist is dissolved away and the hardened resist remains. The sheet of material will then have resist remaining in the areas where the material needs to remain, while the rest of the sheet has exposed metal where the material is to be removed. The next step is to have the sheet put through an etching machine, where etchant is sprayed on both sides of the sheet. Where the etchant comes in contact with exposed material, the metal is dissolved. Where the resist has been applied, the material will be protected from the etchant. When the sheet is finished etching, the remaining resist must be removed. This is done by applying resist stripper, which dissolves the resist. The result is the finished etched part.
Okay, so hopefully that gives an idea visually of what goes on. It's quite it's a nice short wee video, and it just goes through every step. And as I say, hopefully it just gives an idea of the technology. I'm going to be going through some actual sheets that we've processed, and by way of a sort of demonstration, but we can fall back on that little video just to sort of reiterate what any of the technologies are. So I've got a couple of slides next, just of some of the parts we've made for the sort of film industry. If you're into your Harry Potter, then you'll recognize some of the parts. So believe it or not, this Harry Potter has been going on for 20 years. It's quite amazing that it has. But we got involved in making a lot of the props or parts for the props that the guys down at the studios down south where they were shot, and from the Snitch wings, the Nimbus 2000, the text on there was photo etched, and so it's really interesting getting involved in some of these projects. the snitch was a big thing at the time, and how it was done, that they did actually get these wings to mechanically move. So they had a brass etching, which they had a clear polyester sort of background just to hold the frame, as a frame to hold it together. And they actually got these to kind of wave. It was fantastic to see it in the film, in real life, as it were. So, as I said, I was going to take you through just a little sort of demo of how you go about thinking about a project. And I've managed to get a more festive feel to this now. So this is a disc, a little bauble that we made as a little gift to some of our customers a few years ago. And it demonstrates really how you can think about things before you start your project. And you can sort of look at this and you just see there's some surface detail, there's some detail that's all the way through. But there's more to it, because you need to link all of that with your CAD artwork. And, there's also a design on the reverse side as well. And that's what I'm sort of wanting to demonstrate to you. So if I go straight into the CAD for how we started doing this. So this is a picture, a sort of screenshot of one of our sort of CAD packages. This one's Coral Draw. And so Anne actually, she drew this. And so it just starts off as a basic circle with another circle on top. And then you sort of add in the detail in the middle. So with this, I try and keep things really, really simple, just so that I understand what a customer wants. And I always just get it into my head, either black or white is metal. You can't have both. It's one or the other. So black is metal on this, white is etching and getting removed completely. Now, by way of sort of complicating this or developing this thought, we can add in colors to demonstrate, mainly to us, what if we want a surface etch, we call it a half etch, but it's an engraving if you want to look at it like that. So there's a historic way of demonstrating this, which we have taken from the printed circuit board industry, which is the technology that the photo etching is based on. And it is using red as your front half etch and blue as your back half etch. And I think this will become evident when I come to show you a railroad piece, that you'll see why you want to be able to do different etches on the back and the front. So Anne will have used layers to make this drawing up, and it's a really good idea to use layers. So you can have one layer, which is your component itself, and then you'll have another layer half etch front, and then another layer half etch back. And that just means we can switch those layers on and off, and it makes our life a lot easier. So developing the design up, we then add, what you can see there is that there's a black frame around that now, and there's a white, what we'll call the cut line around your component. And then if you can just notice at the sort of 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock and 6 o'clock position, we've got some little tags. And this is what's going to hold that part into the sheet. So I deliberately haven't given this, the next slide is the only slide that I've got numbers on, because I could easily get carried away with that, and I don't want to, because there's too much detail in it. But in principle, all I want to demonstrate in this next slide is that the minimum detail, either an etched slot or hole, or a minimum width of a bar that you want to keep as metal, there's a ratio of roughly, for brass, is about 1.2. So if you take the thickness of your material and multiply it by 1.2, it'll give you a figure that in theory should work. So this next slide just shows you, if you, let's just take the 10 thousandths material thickness there, and then the minimum gap in bar is, as I've said, times 1.2 is 12 thousandths. So that's, that makes sense there. And then the other thing is what was started off with, talking about the tags that hold the component on. We've got a recommendation that on the thin material, you can use a full thickness tag, but very narrow. But on all of the thicker material, if you use a half etch tag, it's a lot easier for the customer to cut out. So it makes life a bit easier for you guys. We try and keep the customer in mind when we're sort of working, doing our job, that we do try and keep you guys in mind. So going on back to our drawing, our CAD drawing, we've now taken, we want to make multiple sheets of this. So we've multiplied an array up, giving us a 4x4 array of this. Now you can see that all of the front detail and the back detail still on the same file, same drawing. So we need to start separating these out, because if you remember, the guy said in the video that we generally work with 2 sheets of film. So we make an envelope of the photo tool. So we need to head towards that. And this is what we're going to do here. So we've now separated out the front and the back. That's what we will now call these images. So the front's on the left, and then on the right, we've got the back. Now, if you notice the black and white section in the middle, it is common to both. So if you half etch from the front, in the same place you half etch on the back, you end up with a hole. So that's your full etch, your through etch. So that's what we've now got. As I said, the colors are there by way of really making it obvious for us which is the back and which is the front. But for putting it through to the photo plotter to make the tool, we actually do need to convert this to everything's either black or white. So that's what this image is. And so that will be the image that we would send through to the photo plotter. Recently, we've updated our plotter, and we can now plot up to sort of 16,000 DPI, which is way more than what we'd really need. But it gives us very high quality films and good registration. So it's very difficult taking a photograph of something that's clear. So this is on a light table with a sheet of paper in behind the film. So this is just the back film. You can read the text is the right way around. And then we need to, as the guy said, we need to stick the 2 halves. So we've got 2 bits of film that make up this envelope, and we're going to sandwich these together, but they obviously have to be meticulously put together so that they're in register, so that the 2 images don't sit outside each other. They've got to be absolutely bang on each other. So that's what's going on here. Just simply checking a tool just to make sure that it is good. We've got a small magnifier, just double checking that everything's good with the tool before we go ahead and manufacture something from it. So moving on to actually what we then do, because then we're into the nitty-gritty of selecting the metal that the customer's recommended, the correct thickness, and getting it all cut, cleaned. So this is one of our coils of stainless steel. So the guys would roll this out, cut that up, get it chopped up into individual sheets, or sometimes we make a larger sheet that we then cut down. We then go through to the cleaning process, super critical to get this right. So this is on the exit of the machine, and it's been through a sort of chemically clean, there's an acid in there basically that cleans it off, gets rid of oils, and also can get rid of any fingerprints and things like that. So we work in a certain area of the workshop in a yellow light. The reason for that is the guy mentioned the photoresist. So a photoresist is what we coat the bare metal with, which is UV sensitive, and because it's UV sensitive, we can't have it sitting under any of the strip lights. So we have to have this yellow light. Yellow is safe for us. So the next slide is just showing you the sort of lamination process. Basically, all it is you've got a feed roller of the photoresist. You've then got a heated roller, and that's up at, as you can see there, 110 degrees C. And this effectively makes the photoresist, which is a film, it melts it onto the metal and adheres it onto the metal. So it's under pressure. There's two rollers that it has to pass through, and this squashes it together. So we then end up with a sheet of metal, which has got in our case, a blue photoresist on it. And the next slide will show you just what that looks like. And this sheet is the Christmas decoration just at the end of the etching cycle. So you can see in the middle there that there's still a couple of little bits of metal sitting there. So that'll need a bit of finishing off. But you can see the blue film roundabout that's completely unaffected by the acid that we use for etching the metal. So the next step, once you've got the etching complete, is the stripping of the photoresist to reveal the design on the raw material. So again, here you can see the little bits of blue resist floating about in solution. So that's now removed, the photoresist. So this is a picture of the front, and then the next slide will show you the back. So just look on here, if you can visualize what you saw on the screen at the CAD stage, that we've got a hole in the middle, and we've got the half etched sort of engraved area of this little sort of floral design there. And then the next slide, you can see that we've got the text around the outside, we've got the full etch on the inside, but there was actually also some little half etched stars. Now we managed to, if you see the position of them, they will be in between so that they don't overlie any of the information on the front, because otherwise we'd end up with a hole. So if you think about it a bit and you get your CADs laid on top of each other, that's why it's really useful using layers, because you can switch a layer on and off and just make sure that you haven't overlaid it and you end up with a hole. So that's the finished article. Again, that's back to the original slide. So we've got the holes in the middle, the full etch, and we've got the half etched areas round about on that. So that is the end of sort of this is the little demonstration of the process. I do have some sort of moving on to slightly more railroady parts. At this juncture, before I sort of move on, is there any sort of questions on what you guys have seen so far?
Yes, we had one question, and it was whether any of your supplies like metal rolls come in by rail.
We have most of our stock comes from Europe, and I would think most of it comes up but just across the channel, across the sea. There's occasionally some. I know that some of the mills that we've dealt with in the past, some have come from Japan. Britain used to have a lot of sort of mills inside Great Britain, but really, to all intents and purposes, they've gone. We do buy material from the US as well. Some of the more specialist thicknesses come from the US, but no, it's I'm afraid a lot of the freight will probably be either road or by sea.
I also have one. I don't know if Jim Murphy has a question. Did you want to unmute and ask?
Oh, I can do that. Okay. Yes. The half etched surface appears white. Now, is that just from diffused light from the etching, or is there actually a pigment in there?
There's not a pigment in there. And on stainless steel, when you half etch it, there is this sort of grayish, whitish finish to it. On the brass, you tend to get a sort of dullness and a more matte finish. There's still a sort of yellowy sort of tinge to it because it's brass, but that is not a pigment in there. That is the natural finish of the stainless steel.
Okay, and a follow-up. So the metals you're using are half-hard brass or stainless steel. Are there other metals that you can get thin enough?
Yeah. I mean, it's but brass but by a long way is the most common, and you're absolutely spot on. Yeah, it's half hard. Just standard CZ108 is what we know it as, and the stainless steels are they're all fully hard, but we use nickel silver quite a lot, and copper. The reason the nickel silver gets used is sometimes because of the color, because stainless steels, it really is very difficult to work with from a soldering and workability point of view. So nickel silver, although there's no silver in it, there's some tin in it, and that's what gives it its silver.
Copper and tin. And
yeah, so that's so I've seen it's quite common to make a chassis from the nickel silver and maybe the conrods as well, with that, and that is available down to sort of the thinner gauges. So copper, stainless steel, brass, nickel silver are sort of mainstays for this kind of work.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I have a question. Just out of curiosity, what resist do you use?
yeah, we've used various resists over the years, and we currently are using a resist that is developed again. Unfortunately, the sort of the photo etching business is unfortunately just too small. Even worldwide is still too small relative to the printed circuit board industry. So we pretty much have to take what they develop for themselves, and then they do sometimes say, look, it is suitable for this. So we're using a product called Colon, and it is from Taiwan. A lot of these products are Asian, We have used Riston, which was there was a Morton Thiacol design that was Dynachem, I think, as
Right.
well.
Yeah,
There was,
Dynachem.
yeah. So
I asked because I was the lead technical guy in North America for 10 years for Riston.
right, yeah. We went through a quite a spell using the Riston, and then again, I think it changed because of the printed circuit board, and we got offered. I don't think there was any cost difference. There was some technical difference between the Riston and the Colon that we were using, and just the ready availability of it as well.
I have a couple of photographs I want to show here. I'm going to share my screen. These are some parts that you made for me about a year ago.
So do you need me to stop sharing my screen?
Ken, can you put me up there? Okay, can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the thing. What you guys produced for me were these maintenance platforms and ladders, the railing, and there's a ladder coming up here. You can't see it.
Yeah.
The bridge itself, I photo printed that myself. I 3D printed that myself.
Right.
But the thing that you guys, you just blew me away with this. Look how thin these rails, it was unbelievable. When I got this thing at home, I just blew my socks off the quality that was in here. I've never seen anyone give me this kind of aspect ratio on these boards. This is in a 0.4 millimeter silicon bronze, I believe it is.
Right.
And they're actually higher than they are wide. This was made from the original railroad prints, drawings.
Wow.
And it's just smack on. I just couldn't get over it. But you can see the quality of the ladder work here, and just outstanding. I was amazed that you were able to pull it off, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, it's really just going back to doing this, getting the ratio of what's achievable on that thickness of material. There's many times people have sent us stuff and they said, "Oh, I want this on, maybe 15 or 16 thou, and the line's maybe only 12 thou wide," and you're like, "Look, we just can't do that." Sometimes there are designs that you can. If it's got a good, strong outer frame, then maybe sometimes you can get some thinner bits on the inner frame, but really you're dicing, it's not a comfortable way for us to work. Because what can happen is that you might get one section that just works and then you maybe lose 6 or 7 on the rest of it. So we tend to try and keep to that ratio, and it means that our processing is more efficient, and also you get something that you're happy with. Cool. Okay, is there anything else just now, or are we good to crack on?
I got one quick question. Is it possible to do like a boiler? Since that's more circular, would you start out flat and then the customer would have to roll it, or would that be something that you'd be able to do?
Yeah, I mean, we generally supply the flat sheets. We very, very, very rarely get involved in actually manufacturing something from them. We have done, but for something like rolling a boiler, we would really expect the customer to do that. I know it can be a bit tricky, but it's something that we would expect the modeler to do.
All right, thank you.
So what I want to do is I'm just going to lead into a wee bit of a run through of making some parts for model railroad. I missed out from the one that we showed you, just the exposing of the material to the UV light and what that actually looks like. So the next slide just shows you, so the front two are just, that's what the brass looks like with the not being exposed to the UV at all. And we've overlaid on top of that the photo tool, so the image, and then the ones behind them, you can see the image and there's a sort of paler color, and that
John,
is, yeah.
Are you sharing now?
Let me just check.
I mean, do you intend to be showing something?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
You have to do your share again.
Right. I need to go through that process again. Right. Okay. I got it. Screen to share. There we go. Yep. Yep. Okay. So, so just what I was saying was that the front pair there show you the photoresist on top of the brass. The back one shows you after it's exposed to the UV light, and you can see this sort of pale color that's sort of similar to the front because it didn't receive any light. The black stops the light going through and means that the photoresist, if you've got a wrist-on expert there, he could probably do this better than me, but the UV light cross-links and hardens the photoresist together so it will not break down. And if you don't do that, i.e. you've got the black areas that don't get any UV light on them, it's still it's not cross-linked. So it's quite easy to wash that away with a very mild alkali developer. Right, so back to here. So this is the sheets as they come out of the developing, or sorry, just as they're going into the developing machine. Basically, when they come out the other side of that, that light green color that you see there that's the photoresist we want to get rid of. So that's going to become natural colored brass, and you'll be left with a dark blue background with a nice shiny brass underneath. All right. So that was just to sort of demonstrate that this is something that we did for a chap here in Scotland. And so what I'm showing you here is on the left, we've got the photo tool. On the right, we've got the developed brass sheet. So you can see clearly where the brass is bare. And this is where we're going to etch, the acid's going to etch into the brass. Now, the one part that I want to sort of focus on is the part in the middle of the sheet where we've got the bulkhead where the firebox would be, where the driver would stand looking through the windows there. So what I want to show you there is really the fold lines. I was playing about with, I think there is just trying to see whether there's so along the fold lines of this, if you can see where my mouse is sort of moving along, we've got one there, same on the other side, but on the back side of that, we've got another two, and that's going to lead me into what I'm trying to demonstrate here, which will be, so this is us now got the finished etched sheet with the resist still on. The blue film is still on there. And you can see that the etched sheet that's it complete. It's ready for stripping. And then on the right-hand side, we've got the finished sheet and it's all the blue films removed. So we're now back to bare brass. So if I can keep focusing on this part, and as I said, there's the reason for focusing on this one is really to get everyone to think before they do any of their drawings about how can I make my life a bit easier. And I've seen people draw this kind of thing and they'll draw every side section as an individual bit and then try and seam solder them all the way up. And I sort of look at these things and sometimes just shake my head and going like, yeah, if you want to do that, go for it. But what I want to show is that with a little bit of thought and a little bit of design, that you can make something that is just, it takes minutes to fold up. So there are fold lines. There's actually 4 lines on there. So you've got one, if I bring my mouse over here. So we've got a fold line down here, here, and one here, and then the last one down there. So 4 on each side. And some of them are on the back of the sheet, some of them on the front of the sheet. But as I say, if you had to, could you imagine trying to seam solder that all together? It would take probably hours. But I think by just putting in a wee fold line, think through the design, try and be clever about it, design it, and you can get a really good result, very symmetrical, and it works, and it really is straightforward to do. So just let me show you what this model was, or what it was of. And this is it was a Scottish train for it was a 00 gauge model, and the company was the Caledonian Railway. And you can see there on the one of the actual models, the CR. So that's Caledonian Railway. This model, or this loco, was it was called a 944 class, and it was a 462 configuration. And this one was built in 1917 in Glasgow by a company called North British and designed by William Pickersgill. And it was one of the sort of earlier sort of heavy sort of passenger locomotives that was used in Britain. And the Caledonian Railway, the livery on that is that typical blue. And so I was reading up a bit. I wasn't sure how long they stayed in service, and they were actually stayed in service till the mid 40s into the sort of early 50s. So it's quite a long lifespan for them. While I'm sort of looking at locos, pictures of locos, this is for Scotland quite a famous one, because it was British Rail. It obviously started off life as a Caledonian Railway, and it was called the Cal 123 is what it's affectionately known as. And it was built about 1886, so a bit earlier. And this was built, they had pretty much free reign when they came to design this. And they had this concept about having one massive driving wheel. And for the time, I believe that it did a run. There was always in Britain, between sort of London and Scotland, you've got the east and the west coasts, and basically all the individual railway companies fought each other to see who could get there the quickest. And this thing did 69 miles an hour, which I think at the time was quite a good effort, really, by them. So this locomotive is still in existence. It is in what's called the Riverside Rail Museum, or it's a transport museum in general. But the Cal 123, I've got the note here that it was taken to the Transport Museum in 1966, and it was restored in the sort of late 50s. That's when it was restored. And you can go there today, and you can go and see and stand on this locomotive. So it's quite an interesting one, and you can still go and see it. So it's a good one for Scotland. And again, like the previous one, it's Caledonian Railways in the blue livery. So that's the Cal 123. So I'm going to just move on to a couple of other just fairly sort of random parts that we've made over the last sort of couple of years, just not for any specific reason, just to demonstrate what can be made. So this was a little decorative part for a jewelry box. There's little holes where you can put your screws through, and then the oval bit in the middle was where the key would go through. So that's, just finesse and a bit of detail just to finish something off. Now, I'll admit now that I'm going to show off a little bit. We are involved in the automotive market a wee bit. And recently we've got one of our badges onto the front of an Aston Martin. And the story behind this one is, if you actually look at the badge in stainless steel that we've made, the little mesh pattern at the back is the lines on that are about 6/1000 of an inch wide. So this is actually made from 40 micron thick, so about 1.5 thousandths thick material. And the reason they wanted it this thin and this small was because it was lighter. So this car, this range, is known as the Valkyrie, and the top of the range model produces 1140 horsepower. And it is an amazing machine. So it's quite, it's quite cool that a kind of wee sort of etching company in the west coast of Scotland is making something that goes on a bit of engineering like that. It's still quite amazing. And that car is now in production. They're making about 3 or 4 a week generally of these ones. So just every few weeks we send down a small package with a dozen bonnet badges in them to do. So it's quite cool. So that's sort of more or less the etching side of things. So I just want to move on to the lasering side of things. And the laser we've had for 4 years now, and it gives us just a completely different capability. And for some of the larger engineering scales for railroading, it's shown what it can do. The photo etching process is good up to maybe 40, 60 thousandths at a push. But really, anything above 40 thou, we would be cutting it on the laser. So you'll be glad to know that we bought American, and this is an IPG laser cube, it's called, and they're based just outside Chicago. Myself and my brother went over and saw some of the machines getting built and stuff. So this is it's got a 4-foot square bed in it, and the capability of this is that we can cut through 1/2-inch steel plate. We can cut through 1/4-inch brass and stainless steel as well. So just to show you what some of the components that we've done. So there's a little buffer beam there, and that was done out of 1/8 brass. And then there's a chap wanted some just mild steel rods, and so it just shows a different aspect, and you could not even dream of doing this by etching. So this is why the capability is different, and it's different in a really good way. I think something on that buffer beam that's interesting is you mentioned, Earl, earlier about the sort of aspect ratios of the process. If you go 1-to-1 with etching, you're walking a fine line there. But with the laser, we can actually drop that to 0.5. So it is just amazing. So those holes, so if that's, I'm going to get lost now with I'm trying to do all my conversions in my head here. So if that is 1/8 thick material, then those holes will probably be maybe only they might only be about 20 or 30 thousandths thick wide. So again, these aspect ratios you just could not achieve with etching. Obviously, I presume obviously that there's a fairly big industry in the garden railways in the US, because there's a few here. There's a couple of companies that we supply into, and they've sort of realized what we can do with this, and so it's really interesting. One of the things that we've developed and use quite a lot with the film industry and sort of some decorative stuff, excuse me, is combining both etching and laser cutting. So this is probably sort of a sheet of 1/8 material that we have photo etched on the surface, but we have profile cut all the way through. So all the little stars in the middle, they're all cut with a laser. And again, impossible to do by etching alone. So the next slide is really just some parts that we've made up for, again, film industry. Sometimes they actually make parts that are working parts. They're not just props that somebody takes a still photo of. That these are actually gear wheels that all built together to make there was a mechanism they were trying to make, and I've seen them actually make the components to make up like a model crossbow as well. Absolutely fascinating to see all the bits, to see how they make it. Again, this is just to demonstrate a kind of thicker sheet, and so it's probably about a 1/4-inch brass. Now, on that last slide that I showed of that one, the mixing of etching and lasering, we couldn't do this without being able to get the laser to know where it is relative to where the brass sheet is, so that we get these stars cut out bang in the middle of that part. So we do this using a camera system, and the camera needs these little L shapes here is what we use as a registration mark. And this was actually cut out in an oval shape, but to tell the laser where it was and where it's to cut that design, we use the camera with the registration marks. The artwork for laser, as you can imagine, is probably a bit more simple because you're really only asking the laser either to be on or off. So the artwork is a bit more like a wireframe drawing, and that is so this is just a little sort of very simple picture to show you what you can get from. So if that's your drawing on the right, that's what you end up with on the left. So moving on. This was really just a wee combo that we did. The local high school they award a ducks model to sort of senior and junior kids that have done particularly well, and it's presented by our local Rotary Club, and this was done here again using the 8 thick brass, and we do the etch, we do the infill. So the image on the top left is the etch which has been infilled. The image sort of center top is where the laser's been cutting the profile on it and the center wheel section. And then at the bottom, it gets finished off with a wee clip with a ribbon and packed up in a box. So it's good, then it's ready to present. A couple other uses. This on the left, it was a strange one for us to do. We're like, what is this? It's a point of sale swing frame for a perfume, and I think the perfume was about $500 a bottle. So this is where this was their point of sale gimmick, if you like, to sell this perfume. The leaf on the right is it was some parts that we cut from copper, and this is something you do get with a laser. It's definitely with the copper, is that we use oxygen as the assist gas on this, and it oxidizes, and you get heat affected zones. So you get quite fancy colors produced from that. This was for a photo shoot during the London Fashion Week. I'm not sure exactly what they did for it with them, but that's what it was for. So anyway, right, okay. So we also have a small laser which cuts wood and plastic and stuff. I mean, I guess some of you guys might even have some, but we've got one that we can. The best one we did is a chap wanted some engine sheds done, so he sent us over the cut profile, and we got all the windows cut out and everything for him, and the guy was delighted with them. So again, it's just something else. And the second last slide here really is about think about your design. Very much etching you can think about it as a flat sheet, but with a little bit of thought. I know all we're doing here is folding something up, but you can make something three-dimensional from 2 dimensions. And with a little bit of thought, you can come up with some really, really cool designs. So really, that is me done. Thanks very much for listening to me go on. There are a lot of guides and stuff on our website. Some of them are just under the artwork guide. Some of them are because we started off doing quite a lot of work with architectural designs. We have, when I was speaking to Ken earlier in the week, he said, do we sell anything ourselves? And I was like, well, we do have some stock material, and it was really just stock railings, stock meshes. We sell them in roughly A4 sheets, and so what we have is available. It's on the website, and a lot of the meshes and railings are in the architectural modeling side. So you can happily have a wee peruse around the website and see what we do there. So that really is me. So I'm going to stop sharing that just now, and more than happy to have some questions.
Hey, John, this is Fran. When we design for etching something, for sending a plan to you, do we have to do any factoring for the folds as of like the length? You add or subtract from the length of the piece that will affect the fold? Or do we have to factor in the thickness of what you're using to get the right length of a piece after it's folded?
Yeah, the thickness of the material is definitely need to take account of that. And it's we sometimes what we do is we will do a little test etch if there's something that's maybe a bit experimental, or you want to just double check. We will do a little test etch first. So if there was one component that was quite complex in its design, and you're looking for, obviously, if you know that it's not a 90 degree, that there's a radius, then you would need to compensate for that radius. But yeah, you need to add on the thickness of the material in the fold that you're doing. And generally what we do is we do the thickness of the fold line that you want. It does depend a wee bit on what thickness of material you're using, but it ideally needs to be, I'm going to say, a minimum of 8 to 10 thousandths, but I would go with a guide of making it the same width as the thickness of the material. That would be a sort of reasonable guide. Obviously, the wider an etch line, a fold line is, the more sort of radius you'll get. But if you want a really sharp 90 degree turn, then you would maybe just make the fold line just a bit narrower.
Yeah, good, thanks.
Anybody have any other questions for John?
Yeah, John, I was just looking at your website, and there's very little information about your laser capability. Is there? Do you have any source of information? I've been experimenting with lost wax casting and to make some driver centers, and I haven't had much luck.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, have you ever laser cut a driver center?
No, I think you're probably right, actually, that we probably need to put a bit more information up about the laser capabilities. I mean, initially when we got it, there was obviously a lot of learning that we had to do with it, but now that we've been using it for a while, it's it really does. It makes a good. It's just another tool for us, if you like, and it can make. There's a guy. One of the first jobs we did, this guy sent us over a cow crusher for a farm model that he was building, and it was made from 2mm brass, and we saw these bits, and we were like, what are you doing with these? And then he showed us a finished one, and it's amazing what, if you get the design right, it can do it. So, and if you've got an idea or you've got a drawing, the guys are happy to email it in to us, and we can get back to you and sort of give you some feedback. We would rather work, depending on how much skill, I guess, you guys have got on the drawing side of things, we would rather somebody emails a half-finished drawing in for us to have a quick look over and say, yeah, whatever you're doing, it's fine. Go ahead with that. But there are occasions when somebody sends a file in and they've spent maybe hours on it, and you're like, no, I'm sorry, you've just drawn this completely wrong, and they need to start again. So I think from your point of view, from our point of view, we don't want to waste your time. Equally, you don't want to waste your own time. If you've got something, pop it over an email, even if it's not quite finished, and we can give you any words of wisdom about that.
Larry McDonald here. Could that be simply a hand drawing? I don't have capabilities with produce something on CAD, but what I'm thinking of is just simple hand railings for an O-scale ship.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've over the years, we've done quite a number of hand railings. So it's possible that we would have something in those stock files. Handrails are very fortunate in so much as it would be something that we could draw really quite easily and quickly. It's not something that we need to, you need to go and get somebody who specializes in CAD files. It's quite straightforward to do. But yeah, and if you sent over a wee email with a sketch on it, then we could say, yeah, it matches up with this, or it's nearly that, and do that.
Very good. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
It's not a question, but John, first of all, that was a fantastic presentation and very interesting. I'd spent my entire career in offset printing, and I was struck by how much of your processes were similar to back when I was working with film, and we would coat the plates and cover the plate with the film, and UV light would go through and expose a part of the plate that then, when it was developed, that would go on the printing press and print it. Of course, then once computers came into us, most of that went away. So yeah, you're kind of melding the old and the new. And I found it fascinating and a little nostalgic.
Well, John, I can't thank you enough for being here tonight and sharing all of this information with us. Like I say, I've had people tell me that have used your service, that it's been a fantastic experience. So thank you so much for taking the time this evening.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. And Ken said to me to mention to everyone that there would be a small prize on offer, and that I believe you'll be announcing that next week or so.
I will announce it next week. Would you like to talk about it a little bit now?
Well, just really what we had said. We'd been asked if Jim asked us if there was a chance of doing something. So we'd said that we could do a free photo tool and a couple of sheets in sort of roughly A4 size, as a little gesture, a little bit of fun for someone to do an actual project on.
Well, what I will do, we'll do a random drawing next show, this time next week. And if you're able to join us, great. If you're not, I will send you an email of the winner. And John, thank you so much for doing that.
I'm sorry if I've maybe ran over a wee bit, but hopefully it's been useful for you guys.
Oh, it's been fantastic. I can't thank you enough.
Okay, Jim, thanks very much. Well, I'm going to go home and go to my bed now.
Yes, sir. I understand. Night.
Right. Good to see you all. Thanks. Bye now. Bye.
Thank you.
Well, now I'd like to turn to more of the regular show. And I apologize if this has run over a little bit, but I think it was really worthwhile because if you are interested in this kind of work, I tell you, I think this is one company that you ought to look into. Now I'd like to talk about the upcoming My Build, which is next week. And Chris, if you'd like to talk about that a little bit.
Sure, Jim. As always, let me get up the share screen here. There it is.
there we have it. Okay, next week, my build featuring you, December 22nd. If you want to participate, email me, railrunner130@hotmail.com, and we will put your pictures in there. And when the time comes up, it'll be your opportunity to show off what you've either been working on, something you found, something you need help with. Matter of fact, let me see here if I can find this thing real quick. Yeah, here it is. All right. Something you need help with, and I'll just give you an example tonight. Right here is something I've been working on for Kooning Models, and the big question is, does my butt look too big? Any thoughts? That's what I'm looking to do, is possibly chop this down. But see, this is one of the things that we want to talk about on new tracks, or on the My Builds, is things that you need help with. You know, that I'm looking for input to see see if maybe this needs to be shrunk down from the back a little bit, or maybe it's good. I don't know. So anyway, if you have some projects that you're working on that you'd like some input on, please bring it up, and we'll discuss it. Don't forget to share pictures, and that's what we're all here for, is to show off what we're all working on, and to help us out with what we need. So anyway, I'll go ahead and put my email in the chat, and turn it back over to you, Jim.
Chris, thank you so much, and I think that's a wonderful idea. It's a beautiful little model you got there. I look forward to seeing what kind of responses you get.
Well, Chris, you should really see. So, who on here has built something last month? Anybody built anything? So, the question here is, this is really the opportunity. This is a show where you get to ask questions. This is the opportunity to be interactive. So, I think Chris has set this up well. So, for example, I've got a building I was originally going to do in acrylic, and I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to do it. And I'm going to bring that up. So the whole thing is, if you've got something you've modeled, or if you've got a question, it's a great opportunity to have a dialogue and interaction. So this is, it's kind of interesting. This whole thing is really, until you get to the after show, is predominantly, prepared sessions and people doing, but this is the one opportunity once a month for each of us to come in and not just show what we've been working on, but really you have that question about, how should I do this? What's a suggestion? It's really interesting. No matter how good a modeler you are, somebody else has figured out how to do something that you don't know how to do. And that's the whole perspective. Is an opportunity, to ask that question, get an answer, show what you're doing, get a suggestion, make it more interactive. So, the interesting question is, right now we've got, 39 participants on here. If just 20% of us decided to do something, that's 8 people. So, when you stop that, go look at what you've got on your model and say, what would I like to send Chris, and to have Chris show, what I'd like to show to everyone, ask a question, show a technique. It can just be a quick tip. So it's really an opportunity to be more, interactive in the whole group concept. Anyway, enough said. I think it's just a real opportunity. I wish more people would take advantage of it. Thanks. Sorry, Chris.
Well, I agree with that, and I also would encourage the people on YouTube to participate. They're welcome to come on and just send the email to Chris. He'll show the model and everything, and talk about it the way that you want it talked about. And you can still watch on YouTube, but you can still participate in this, even though you're not on the Zoom link all the time. So with that said, Phil, since you're on right now, let me go to the Motrak Built Along, because this is your turn, I think, to finish up the O-scale model for the 4 models of the same building that we're doing on this. So I'll leave it with you, sir. And you need to turn on your speaker.
to unmute and share my screen. So let's see if we share the right screen here. So that should be a well-shared screen. So this is the O-scale version of the Motrak model of the Adamsville Depot. You know, I said this was kind of the way I took this was rather than building the model as, you know, it came out of the package. There were really two characteristics I wanted. One, I wanted to build it in a way that it could be used on an O-scale narrow gauge module. Secondly, I wanted to give it more detail and change it from something you probably wouldn't put up close to the edge of your railroad to something that could be viewed at 6 to 8 to 10 inches. And kind of, I think that's a fun thing to do with virtually any model. So the first thing I want to do is hit tonight, kind of where I closed last time. I went really fast, so I thought I'd take a moment longer. So these were the walls. The walls were all pre-built and completely finished on the inside and outside, separate from the model. Makes everything a lot easier to do. They were painted with Floco Reefer yellow over some pre-weathered wood to give it a nice light thin coat. I talked about that last time. The interior was washed with a light dye, and then all the signs and things were added. So one of the things clearly on a building like this gives you a lot of kind of character is adding signs in, a combination of some commercial things that I had in the toolbox, but also some prints that were, from the internet. The whole thing, the station signs are actually printed placards on plastic strips to give them a little bit of depth versus normal signs that would have been on the side. And the whole thing then was put on the base. But before I did that, one of the things I really focused on was doing a little bit of weathering. So this is kind of my weathering setup. I've got a tub. This is a tub lid from a fairly large container I've got in my shop, rolling shop thing where my airbrush is in the garage. And it turns out I set it up so they don't really need lids. So I got a bunch of lids, and they're great work surfaces for doing all these dirty things, as you can see. But basically, this is a combination of regular chalks. These are actually some prepackaged chalks. Have used both these that came from Amazon, and these are some Rembrandts in this box. I didn't put them out. I have a grater that I bought at the dollar store, and you can grate these stick chalks into a bowl. And then I use a fairly short brush here to actually grab that chalk and put it on the model. So you can kind of see here on the floor, where in this picture, there's nothing on the floor. Over here, we begin to add some weathering inside where the foot patterns would be based on where things were inside, and then the outside. And then the walls were all weathered at the same time. The next stage was putting the walls together and assembling it. And that's actually pretty easy. It was just assembled on the corner. I decided to put it on the corner to maximize kind of the area to put things on as far as details, et cetera, on the platform. If you put it more in the middle, you get smaller areas all around. The next stage was doing the roof. The roof, nice thing about the model is it came with roof strips, strips of pre-cut, strips of paper that were cut on the laser cutter. The suggestions were to color those before you installed them. So I colored them. My one comment was I get a little impatient occasionally, and I did this more blotchy. And I think it should have been more streaky. I think it would have been better to do different colors and try to get more vertical streaking onto it. Then the stakes were glued to each roof piece separately, all the way up to the top to where the top piece would go on. Then what I did was to glue it together. I actually used the braces that were provided. Those are these two braces here, which are little wooden braces that were provided with the kit. But because I wanted to put the roof together before I put it on to be able to finish it, I went ahead and 3D printed two small braces for the interior. And then what you'll notice is I put some LED lights right here. So these braces here are the 3D printed braces. These are the ones that are laser cut that came in the kit. And these are just very, very micro LEDs, and they're literally just glued in across the top with the idea of creating some lighting inside so you can see the interior. I also 3D printed these little corners out here to glue in, really just to strengthen the roof as you put it together, because that let me build it. Generally, I'd make roofs removable, but in this case, I didn't. Before I put the roof on, I put some interior details in, some printed letters here. These are all 3D printed. This is a 3D printed desk. Over here, we've got a 3D printed table along with some 3D printed chairs. And this is a Berkshire Valley potbelly stove here in the corner. Felt like you kind of had to have a stove in this. The details, turns out, when you look at building an O-scale, you can actually print things. You don't need necessarily a resin printer for a lot of these things. So these are chairs that were actually printed on the filament printer. And when you look at them inside, they work very well. Same with this. I did put together the stairway as it was built in the model. I put one of them together that way. I thought it was a really nice little set of stairs. Because I had cut the platform down to be able to use with a narrow gauge and in a narrow gauge environment, I made a second set of stairs where I cut them off and made them a little bit shorter to fit in this environment. So I've got some prepared stairs. And you can kind of see the end here of the boards and the wood a little bit that we talked about earlier. A couple other things. This is a brass tube. One of the things I found is if you just put a brass tube, scrap brass tube, through the model down to the level of the scenery, it's a great place to run your wiring. You paint it black, it really becomes invisible in the model. The other thing that I wanted to point out here was one of the real scale differences is all the other models, through the S model, use a corner block here at the edge of the walls. If you notice, when you look back here on this picture where you can see, you'll see that the corner locks here, these corner locks here of the laser cutter actually are right on the boards to the end. And because what this model had that was different is it came with this angled wood strip that you actually put on the corners. And that actually works really well. I'm actually going to buy some of that and use it on some other models because it actually is a great way of putting an edge on. I normally use, a 1x6 and a 1x8 and kind of overlap them a little bit at the corner, but this makes it really easy. The only challenge I found was cutting the angles for the roof at the top. It was really tough to keep it from splitting. So the next thing to do is just to glue the roof on. Side, because I found is once you glue the roof on, obviously you can't get back inside to do anything. I actually had another model similar to this with similar structure that I did this on, and I had a figure fall over, and you have to reach in with tweezers and try to put everything back together. I thought about trying to make this roof removable. The problem is the posts that are over here would have to have been put in place beforehand and somehow attached back to the building so the roof could sit on them. And I just decided it was just too much and too kind of spindly out there to make that work. So essentially the roof got glued on, got glued down with tapes, and then I tried testing some figures. So clearly one of the things you want when you do a station is you want to do a bunch of figures. So I did a bunch of figures, did a little bit of washing of them, make them a little bit darker, and then some dull coat. The next step was putting in the smokestack of the potbelly stove. So what I do and do that is you measure really exactly where the stove is on the inside, and then mark that on the roof, and then start drilling through the roof with first a very small drill and then progressively larger drills. And if you do your measuring right, and actually in this one I did, when I got through the roof, I was right on the top of the flue that came out of the stove. So then basically this was glued into place in that location. And then what I do is I keep these are these small takeout tubs that you get when you get salsa at a takeout bar. And what I've done is I put a little bit of Dr. Ben's rust in that. And when it dries out, the alcohol dries out, it just stays in there. And all you need to do is throw a little bit of alcohol in to wet it. And then you can seal around the stack of the roof. So it becomes really easy to put that rust in, and notice you rust the stack, but also rust down the roof. So the last thing then was weathering the roof, again, using chalks, a variety of chalks. One thing that If you're not have not done much dry brushing, this is a special dry brushing set. There are 3 sizes of this. It's from a company called the Army Painter. It's actually from the military modelers. And I found it has these really short, stiff bristles and a circular pattern. And it works really well to do dry brushing and get some dry brushing on, especially when you can't see it very well, but when you try to get the white on to do a little bit of highlights on the model. So anyway, that basically wraps it up. A few final photos. All this is a piece of foam with actually loose dirt on it and a piece of track with a couple of sticks of glue on it. But took it outside to try to take some pictures to show once you put it on your layout, you can even take a kit like this that's a fairly simple kit and make it into a building that's quite attractive. And in O scale, being able to have a station, a depot that's this size is really important because we just don't want to spend a lot of our space on depots. And then again, in O scale, as I said at the beginning, doing the interior to me is really important. So here are some kind of shots of the interior and what the building looks like. So that's basically a wrap. And thanks everyone. And are there any questions, comments, or other discussion?
Why don't we hold those until toward the end here so we can get everybody else in here, because we're running a little bit late right now, Phil. But thank you so very much. That's a beautiful structure that you built, and I really appreciate, number one, you coming up with the idea of doing this in all 4 scales, and number 2, for agreeing to do the O scale version of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a cool building, and it will find a place on some modular layout someday for sure.
Absolutely, no question in my mind. Now I'd like to turn to Clark Kooning for the build along of the Banta model that he's working on. Clark, welcome.
Well, hi kids. Let's see if we can turn up some volume here. I can get a little better. Let's go to share screen. Woohoo. All right. All right. So last when we were together last week, we did part 1, and obviously this is part 2 this week. As we left you off last week, we said to glue or not to glue. That was going to be the big question. So per Bill's suggestion and thinking along the lines of somebody who's not built one of these models and kind of new to modeling, which I tend to do quite a bit because my whole approach to these clinics is to help the newer modeler. People like Phil are going to figure it out anyway, but because he has experience. But for people who are just starting out, it's maybe a good idea to start with the suggested instructions to a certain point. So anyway, as we mentioned before, the slight difference between this kit and most kits is that there is a plywood base, or in this case, MDF. And then we add the pieces onto the substructure. So as we talked about last week, we have sort of the option 1 of putting it all together, or do we do it in the flat? Now, these are the individual boards that have already been laser cut here in on the right-hand picture under option 2. So after some thought, I decided we would glue it up. So what we've done here is just checking the pieces, make sure we know where they're going to go in relationship to the basic floor. We've already glued in the underframe or the foundation. And so we have to know where all these pieces are going to go. Now, we talked about registration marks. So we know if we flip this over, the registration marks would be on the outside of the building, because we're going to need those points as references to put up the board-on-board pieces. Now, first of all, now somebody asked Bill a question about sanding the edge of the laser. I really believe you should. After building literally hundreds of laser kits, taking off that little bit of burn from when the laser cuts it, it allows the wood glue to get in there a little bit easier. Otherwise, it sort of sits there. I want the wood glue to get into those porous pieces of wood. So I just give it a real quick sand. You don't have to change any dimensions or anything. You just want to take off some of that burn mark from the laser. Now I like to use these little glue bottles. I'm just using the yellow glue, and we'll go around all the edge that and the bottom piece that has to be glued onto, in this case, the basic frame. I'm also using a little 2x2 angle piece to make sure I get this nice and square. One of my pet peeves is glue. Oy, oy, oy. Don't be lazy. Clean up glue if you get a bit of a run out. You know, a simple little stiff bristle brush with some water, and clean up that that glue. It goes a long way to building a better model. So per the kit's instructions, we've glued now the 4 pieces up, and it goes together really nice. It is a super neat kit, in my opinion, and very well designed. Now, at this point, while that's doing, I went on to the roof. So the same thing, I've sprayed it with the gray paint. And so there's 2 pieces to the actual roof, and then these 2 supports. And you'll notice that they have windows cut in them. And this is kind of, again, a different approach to putting a roof on a lot of kits. And this is really good. As Phil talked about, he glued his roof on, and maybe, how can I get in? This, the way it sits in the model, allows you to make it removable and not really have to glue it down. It's really well thought out, I think. So here we have the basic angle pieces on the left-hand portion or left slide. And then you've got your flat section here. And again, the notches fit perfectly into each other, and you can glue them up. Now, I only did it halfway here so that you can see here, you can see how this piece actually fits on the inside of this. And that's why those windows are cut out, because if you remember from the outside of the, on both ends, the gable ends, there is a hole or window for in the structure. So you need that hole to continue. Now here's one, it's just taped in place so that you can see, and you want to make sure it will line up in your hole, but it does perfectly. When you glue them together, it will line up. And here's a view from the outside again. You'll see that there is no interference from this support piece. All right. And here's what it looks like on the building. Now, you'll notice that there is a bit of a space here, but as per the instructions, that you're going to lay another piece in there. But basically, the outer structure of the whole building is now complete, and we can let that dry. So now the next question. Oh, one thing, and I should say it here. You have to watch. There is this little hole in the roof, and that is for the smoke jacket, for the stove or whatever you want to use in here. And that has, per the instructions, it's sort of in this corner. Now, if you flip this wall or this, roof component over, it would be on the other side. Now, in this kind of model, it looks like a little office would be over here, and then the rest would be storage. So more than likely, the stove would be situated here in order to keep the freight agent warm. So just make sure that, oh, hey, where we locate the hole. Otherwise, you're going to have to drill it out. Okay, so here's the complete roof insert. It's all drying, and it really is pretty strong as well with the way it's designed. So now the big question, how do we want to color this structure? Remember, all these individual boards are all laser cut here, and we're going to glue them onto the surface. So that's the big question. How are we going to color this, and what are we going to use? I decided to go with Driftwood Hunterline Stain to start with. That's going to be my base color. I wanted kind of a rustic look, so we're going to go with the Driftwood. And as I've said before, as the world turns in model railroading, stay tuned for next week's clinic. Same bat channel, same bat time. When in part 3, we're going to stain, paint, or do something totally crazy. And I haven't quite decided which way I'm going to go yet. I'm kind of leaning to the crazy, which suits my personality.
We've known that for a long time.
Yes, thank you. So we're going to look at something kind of neat. I'm going to look at a couple of things that I've just recently learned from another friend of mine, a fellow named Ralph Renzetti. And he did a clinic on NMRAX, which you may go look at, about peeling paint. And it was kind of a neat process. And I've kind of gathered up all the materials and thinking about actually trying his process on this. So anyway,
Yeah,
that's
gotta
it.
be crazy to live in Elliott Lake.
No, not crazy at all. Not crazy at all. And hopefully we'll see everybody next week. So answers to these and modeling questions and much more next week. We'll talk to you then.
Clark, we really appreciate all of your help in doing these. You're really talented in how you present these, and we really do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome. I'm trying to interject some fun because otherwise some of these builds just get, pretty boring.
Okay. Well, now I'd like to turn to somebody that was supposed to be here last week, but had computer problems and internet problems and couldn't make it. Wayne Wesser. And Wayne was kind enough to donate the $50 prize for some of his products in last week's show, even though he couldn't be here himself. So tonight he's able to be here, and I welcome Wayne. Wayne, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, Jim, for having me.
And, I'll leave it up to you whether you want to talk about the rust weathering or whether you want to talk about the trees and ground cover, or both, or however you want to do it is fine with me.
Well, I think being you're probably pushing for time, we'll pick one. Pre-warn you ahead, I'm on a new computer I haven't been on, and I'm trying to do a PowerPoint, which I've never done. So I hope this works. So if you want, I'll just go ahead with one of them. We'll see which one comes up.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And thanks so much for giving the prize. I think that was so nice of you. I really do appreciate it.
No problem. I'm not sure how to share my, I have a PDF in documents here, and I've not
So
sure
the best way to do it is click on the share button.
Okay, I clicked on share.
And then the upper left, look at the upper left window. You'll see all of us on the Zoom screen.
Right.
Click on that one, and that way we're seeing your desktop, so we see what you see. So because you click on the other stuff, it's too easy to get lost.
Okay, do I click? I don't click share first, though. I click on
No,
that
just click
screen.
on the upper left window and then click share, and then we'll see your screen, and you can share whatever's on your screen. We're seeing it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm clicking that screen and nothing happens.
Well, click share after you click it. Click it once and then click share.
Got it.
There we go.
Okay. Now here we are. Here's my presentations. Okay. I'm going to open this one, and we'll see which one it is. Okay, and then I'm going to go here. I've learned something tonight. Low system resource may affect on what this is here. Okay.
Click on the little thing, look over to the left, move your mouse to the left.
Yeah.
That little thing that's got two, no, up at the top, top. Keep going up, slide to the right, slide to the right, slide to the right, slide your mouse to the right. You want to go to that, that little thing that expands it out there.
Okay.
It's
So see
next
where
to
it
that
says
positive sign.
See where it says 81% and there's a positive sign right to the right of that little box with an up arrow and down arrow. If you click on that, it'll make it full screen.
Oh, here we are. Okay. Click on the little box.
That one there, click on that.
Got it.
Oh, no, that's fit to width. I don't know where they, I thought that was going to make it full screen, but it didn't. I'm sorry.
What about the plus?
Yeah.
If you
I
go
think-
down, if you go down to the bottom of his screen, he should be able to see the screen. And I think if you click on that, it will go.
The screen. Where is this?
Just on the screen.
Anyway, I can, if nothing else,
Just do it like this.
I can do it this way. Okay. You can see that picture
Yes.
of the trees. We'll do it this way. Anyway, I've taken a few shots, and unfortunately, it would have been nice to take them in a little more summery time when there was more green. But this I've got about I don't know, 6 or 8 shots here. There show some forest close up and some distant ones. You know, here you can see where there's a lot of ingrowth within the forest. Here's a close-up one, and you can see again very thick. Very lot of underbrush. I think in model railroading, we seem to rarely do that. We either clog our forests up with trees or we leave a lot of see-through. More like this one where you've got see-through and you could actually have a backdrop there that never even had anything but blue sky on it. But it shows some of the deadfall on this one. And I'll get to some of the things I use for some of that stuff down the road. Here we got a little more close-up of some deadfall and also some dead standing trees. And this, of course, is all deciduous trees at this time of year. But the reason I took this is, again, it shows a very dense forest bottom, and up to the forest is just grassed area, which I tried to find different kinds of areas. Here's another one. And this particular tree is of interest because I'm going to show you something that I've found for dead trees that are sort of like that. And again, a grassed area. This is kind of an interesting scene where if it was summer, of course, we'd have had the upright trees green, but dead ones leaning against them with also a lot of underbush. And a shorter area with trees in front, but sort of the little bit of shrubs in the background. So I'll talk a little bit about the products that some of I use. And what I want to say, in no way this is the way to go with the forest. It's just one way, one of the ways that I do some things, and I think probably a lot of you have other methods. Some of the Woodland Scenes product I use, the fine turf soil. I like that as a base. I paint my landscape first and then put the soil on to give it a base. The coarse turf gives it kind of a little bit of low ground undergreen in a light green. Gives it some undergrowth. And of course, the reason for the yellow is it's good to use in areas where the sun might shine through, and it gives some sun streaks. The other thing I use is is some of the flock. And it's Scenic Express, and there's some deadfall frock, which is really, really nice because it's got a lot of, the one on the right, it's got a lot of things in it. It's got twigs, it's got pieces of bark, it's got a lot of real actual live, or what used to be live things in it. And of course, well, then again, there's the coarse turf in a light green, and the green scenic scenery here, which is alpine metal. So it has some green in, but it's a lot coarser, which is good to use at a forest edge, which will give you kind of some growth. Some of the other things I use that are commercial products are, tree shrub products, reindeer moss. Bachman makes some really nice wire foliage. They also make this in some colors, and it's kind of nice to use some colors along the edge because you want to take away a little bit of not everything being solid green. And the other things I use is Woodland makes some nice briar patch. It's good for shrubbery in the front edge of a forest. And I use grasses. I also use sometimes the static grasses. I'd like to talk about these dead trees. These are just painted gray. I haven't weathered them yet, but they make excellent dead trees standing within your forest, and they're actually found from wild. What do we call them? Wild rose bushes, and they're actually the twig that the berries grow on. You have to be very careful if you're out picking them because they have a lot of thorns. You have to trim all the thorns off, but they make a really nice dead tree among a stand of trees. Here's the other things I collect, and I collect a lot of small twigs, and these will become the deadfall in the forest for what I do. And I'll collect some bigger things, which become, pieces of log, which might be more in the background or even in the front if you want to do a little work. Some of these odd shaped ones, you can sort of weather those up and make some rotted out logs with them. One thing I want to sort of caution, and I know I go on the internet and I check a lot, and a lot of the modelers don't heat treat the natural items they use, but I really recommend heat treating anything you're bringing in from outside, whether it's twigs or branches or soil or whatever. And although traditionally a lot of modelers say I've never had a problem with it, the problem is that a lot of these things carry E. coli from the urine of cats and rats and squirrels and so on. And it's just not worth taking the chance. Now, before you heat treat it and put it in the oven, which I'm not sure I did, you need to get the permission of your wife to do that because she may not want you heat treating things in the oven. But put the stuff on a tray. Get an old cookie sheet tray and heat it up. You need to stay below the ignition temperature, so no more than 200 degrees. You give it a half an hour, you can be sure there'll be nothing there anymore. Here's some of those other kinds of things. You want to look for unusual kinds of things because things like at the bottom, the rough little rubble things and some of the other twigs that have natural broken ends that have weathered off are often ideal to use as logs. And you start putting a little moss on them, or you start putting a little bit of growth on them, and it's amazing what they'll turn out to be. This is some of the things maybe many of us never think of, and this is just one product. This is oak. If you go to your health food store, you'll find they have a number of products like this that are actually used to make tea. This is one bag I pulled out of my stash that it's ground up oak. It also has another good use. If you have a sawmill or something, you can sure use it around there. But if you do a little coloring on it, it makes great bed to drop onto your forest floor. And there's barks, and I didn't crush this up very much, but there's things like bark which are natural, which you can grind up and use as a texture to your floor. Now these are a couple of unusual things. These are actual roots, and you'll notice if some of you have ever piled a pile of sand and the grass is growing through, and you pull that grass out, there's really some phenomenal roots underneath. The other thing that makes the really nice roots, which is the front ones, the bottom picture, and those are from cedars. If you have cedar bushes or you have cedar trees, their roots tend to be very near the surface, and you dig a little around and pull those roots out, which won't harm the tree if you pull out just a few. Not only would they create nice logs or trunks for deadfall, the roots create, a lot of little miniature looking sort of twigs within your forest floor. Now these are all very smooth. These are actually beech driftwood wood, and the real smooth ones are not really ideal, but I've included them here so you can kind of catch on to the fact that there's a lot of stuff on the beaches if you go out and collect, and I've found now when I go out, I'll take plastic bags with me and I'll collect, and there's a number of these like the log on the left, which would make an ideal dead, rotted out sort of log, and some of these others as well. So you can sort of pick and select those. It's not that we need a whole lot of them. And of course, there's another picture of some, and they're not all ideal, but some of them certainly are on the bottom few. And these are, of course, a little more rugged ones off the beach. And some of those, again, like the top two, would make ideal sort of rotted out logs once you put a little moss on them and you put a little weathering to them. And just another picture of some of the similar things. And it's a matter of you collect them and then go through and pick out the 3 or 4 or 6 that you really need. And it's easily accessible stuff that's natural. But again, remember, I would recommend heat treating it, but it's whatever your preference is. I've got a couple of little dioramas here I'm going to show you, and this one is actually HON3, and it's a see-through forest, so of course there's greenery, but you'll see a lot of deadfall within there. You'll see some colored down the middle there. You'll see kind of an orangey. That's some of those Bachman wire bushes in color. On the right-hand side, there's some color. Here's another shot of that a little closer up, and you can see some of the logs and some of the growth and the undergrowth that's underneath there. And here's the back side of that same little diorama. Not as detailed, but still some stuff laying around, and of course some of the reindeer moss and different things. Here's another module, and it's actually ON30, and it's not quite as the trees are a little lower here, not quite as see-through on the bottom, but again a number of dead logs and bushes and different things laying around. What you need to do is just go out and look what nature has and sort of try and make a sort of a simulation of what you see out there. Here's a close-up, a little more close-up with You can get a little better look at some of the bushes and the different things, and vary the colors if you can. This is kind of an interesting scene because the rails are laid on actually logs here, which makes it kind of an interesting. A little more close up. This is actually, this little thing here is some of the, at the end of the branch here is some of the products of the commercial underbush. And again, you can see I've just used some of those twigs I've picked up, and they've fallen down and they sort of look just like they probably would have in the forest, except that we don't quite, maybe can't quite get as detailed. And there's the backside of this little diorama. Again, a lot of little fallen down, dead, a stump. Some of the logs you see on the right from the backside. And there's a rotted out log. Actually, that particular one is the one with the mushrooms on is actually one of the ones that I sell through the tree guy. And a little more close up again of, it's surprising, this big bush in the front is one of those wire bushes, and they look pretty decent, even close up. And there's another shot of the backside with some color to it. Rotted out log on the end. A lot of little debris laying around. And the final shot I have here is, this is a little piece of that driftwood I picked up that was kind of a rotty little thing already, and I've added some moss, I've added, a few little mushrooms to it on the sort of on the right-hand side, a little bit of greenery, a little bit of something growing on it. And it's surprising, once you take those pieces of driftwood, you can dress them up a little bit, you can stain them a little bit, and they look pretty decent. And thank you for letting me do this for you today. And anybody has any questions?
A comment, I wouldn't hesitate to sterilize the stuff from where I collect it. And your outdoor, if you have a gas barbecue outside, it makes it, you can keep your family relations intact.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Plus, if you use smoke, you get a nice aroma for your train room.
Hold it just a second. Wayne, I really do appreciate you doing this tonight. And if you want to, I'd like for you to come back next week and do the weathering that we talked about.
I can do that, yes.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Now, I'd like to open this up for questions, not just for Wayne, but for Phil, for Clark, for anybody that has any questions for what you've heard so far. Well, I guess you all have done such a fantastic job that nobody has any questions.
Well, wait a second. When you use the barbecue, do you use smoke? Does that give you an aroma for your layout later after you've smoked your landscaping?
No.
You're modeling California.
I think the thing to remember is you're not heating it that hot. I mean, we barbecue at probably 350, 450 degrees, and yeah, you can smoke, but you don't want to heat this to probably on beyond 200 degrees, or otherwise you're going to have a fire.
Have you ever used a microwave to heat your materials?
Oh, never use a microwave. The thing with microwaves is generally there needs to be moisture to use a microwave, and we're dealing with a dry product. And yeah, I don't think that is probably the way you'd ever want to go, because what you want to do is you want to not only kill any bacteria in that product, you want to make sure it's dry.
Also, if there's even the slightest piece of metal in with your debris, As soon as the microwave hits that, you got yourself a terrible fire in your microwave, and mama will not be happy.
Exactly.
Well, I have a question with the log ties. Are they sort of cut in half, or they're just, or is the logs just put on there and they're just spiked on a round log?
In that case, what I did is I found logs which I thought were about the right diameter to equal what an ON30 tie would be, or what maybe the loggers would use. And I didn't worry about the irregularity of them. I cut them to length, and then I slightly sanded one side and glued them down. When they were dry, I sanded the other side, actually with a belt sander, so that they were all pretty well the same level. And if you put a fine enough belt in and you make sure they're well glued down, you're not going to knock them off. And even if you do, you can, I guess, glue one or two back in. But that's what I did in that case. It makes a really nice logging railroad, or at least a small stretch where a line might have run into the woods, which isn't unnormal for, although you see on some lines, if you look at some logging railroad pictures, they actually just laid the rail right on top of the logs, but it's kind of nice to see them, the top of them taken off.
All right, thank you.
Wayne, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Wayne, what did you use for your mushrooms or wild mushrooms on the tree?
My mushrooms, I actually use a, you'll notice there's two kinds of mushrooms there. There's the little guys that stand up, but the yellow ones are actually a yellow craft paper that I cut little half rounds out of.
Okay.
And then I glue them on, and then I'll touch them up with, actually what I use is cinnamon as just an acrylic cinnamon, but you could probably use, any sort of a light brown color to kind of give them an edge, but don't paint the whole thing. Leave them sort of yellowy. And although those mushrooms in real life aren't all yellow, you need them to sort of show off. So you have to do like a little imagineering to make them visible.
Thank you very much, Wayne. Very well done.
Thanks, Pat.
I enjoyed your webinar and all the little foresting of scrounging wood here and there. And I do the stuff off the beach myself and that. And I've tried tomato roots, but I really like the cedar roots, because every spring I got to turn over a garden for my wife, her flower garden, and it's got all kinds of cedar roots creeping through it, just an inch under the surface.
Yes, they're
So
right
now,
on.
other than a sore back, I'll have a reward for it.
I think one thing I want to try sometime is the odd time you'll see on a cut bank, you'll see a tree close to the edge with a few roots hanging out that are on the surface. And one of these days I'm going to try that, and those roots will be just perfect for that.
So common along the shoreline where the shoreline's eroding. There's been trees along there.
Exactly.
That's one of the first stages before the tree goes.
Yes.
Wayne, in preparing for the show, this is Ken. I couldn't find anywhere where I could preview your products for sale or contacting for purchasing.
Actually, it is kind of difficult. We are working on a website which is going to make it easier, but at the moment, I only have a Facebook page, and it's listed under the Tree Guy, but you won't get it if you put in Tree Guy. If you go on Facebook and put in the Tree Guy scale trees, it'll come up.
Is that separate words?
All separate words. The Tree Guy scale trees, and it should come up on Facebook. And on, yeah, and there should be a email on there. There will be an email on there that then you can email me. There's also a price list on there. There's pictures of products on there, and hopefully in the new year we'll have a website up, and it'll make it sure easier for people to find me.
Anybody else have any more questions for Phil or Clark or? Well, thank you so much for being here for tonight, everybody. I really do appreciate it. I hope you'll come back next week. We've got some exciting things planned then. Clark will be back with his Banta model. Greg Cassidy will finish out the Motrak build that we've been working on. And Wayne will be back to talk about the weathering that he does on his models. And we'll have an announcement of the build along for Kershaw models with Paul Reeves and Martin Breckville. And that's all in addition to the My Build, where we get to see what everybody is working on or has worked on or is considering building or thinking about or whatever. And I really hope that a lot of people do participate in that, because I do think that that's a learning experience for everybody, and shows, you know, a lot of different models that people can consider building, and I think that's great. The last thing that I want to mention tonight is that we've got a new show that we're starting on Saturday mornings at noontime. And I'll give you more details about it on the 29th of this month. The show that we're going to start on Saturday is going to be at noontime on Saturday. And it starts on January the 22nd will be the first show. It'll be a weekly show after that. And I think it's going to be something that I hope a lot of you will want to see if you can. And again, it'll be live streamed on YouTube and also recorded as we record this one. So I'm really pleased about this. And I think when we formally announce it on the 29th show of this month, and you find out who's going to be the primary person involved in it, that it's going to have a lot of appeal. So with that said, I hope you'll come back next time and tell your friends about us. I hope you enjoyed tonight. Most importantly, I hope you learned something. And now, Clark, I will turn it over to your friendly face for the after show. Thanks so much for helping, Clark.
No problem. I don't know about the friendly face. As I said before, I'm in the dark because I have a face for radio.
That's also what makes it friendly.
Hey, watch it, young man. Yeah, you too, Daryl. I see your thing in the chat. Hey, well, I see Mr. McDonald on here. I am going to show something of Mr. McDonald's. Do you want to talk about that, Larry?
That was a little diorama that I made up in 120 scale. And the building is just foam board with all it as a base structure with all individual boards added, but I really tried to get funky with it. Tried in a lot of techniques that were my own in coloring and that. And basically when I built this, I bought a little car, a little sports car. And a lot of the guys in my group, why didn't you get a truck? And so I thought, okay, just to show you what I can do with this little car, I'll build them a module in 120 scale. So this was part of the result. I've never finished it yet. It's still sitting in the furnace room. And but I had a lot of fun doing this, and it actually got an award at a show. So that was a surprise too. I didn't actually enter it, but they came and wanted me to enter it as a module.
I think I have another shot of it there. You can see how big it is. This is another. Wow. This is another fellow that is in our group, but you can see how big the model actually is from this shot.
Yeah, I would say it's probably about 3 feet long. Height-wise, I'd have to say at least a foot high.
Yeah.
And I was going to. It's kind of like there's that base you see there, and then there's another section that folds over, and there's sides that you screw on, so you end up with a casket. But my casket is a V shape because I have a hatchback car. But, so that the second half, I was going to do something like Chuck Dolan's garage scene that he did, and I never got around. I've collected all the materials for it now, and the vehicle kits that I want to hack up, and so anyway, thanks Clark for putting that up. It brought back some memories.
Yeah, well, this is some time ago. You know, Maureen and Rick Hunter, this is one part of their old display with all the Mount Albert scale lumber. So this was at a little narrow gauge meet. There's actually 2 floors. There's another floor above this. And we always have a good time at this. Dave Woodhead is running this for recently. So
that's right.
yeah, so that was good. Now let's see, who have we got on here that we've maybe never talked to? Who's new? Put up your hand. Anybody new?
No, Al, you're not new.
Al may be new. Did you get a little help? Have you had your little electrical shot yet? Al? Calling Al?
I think it's dead.
Obviously, he hasn't had it yet.
There I am.
Did
Next
you?
week.
Oh, next week. Okay. All right. All righty.
So maybe I'll be back and maybe I won't.
You'll be back. We can't get rid of you.
Well, there's
Al, you got to be on next week. I'm going to be showing something.
Uh-oh.
And I'm still waiting for, you know, the new tool.
Get in line.
I was saying to Greg, I'm trying to find some knobs. And we'll leave that.
This is the place to find them.
We got knobs.
Oh boy, I'll get in trouble for that one. Anyway, who else is here that maybe we have never talked to? Let's see. Sam left us. I feel like Sam is the new. I think he's new. Hank, how are you doing?
Actually, I'm doing quite well. Since some of you guys may know Peter Youngblood, he went through his surgery very well. He's about to be discharged, if he wasn't already discharged from the hospital, and he's moving along very well.
Oh, excellent, excellent. I talked to him before he went in, but I haven't talked to him, in the last couple of days. So.
No, well, he's kind of like incommunicado.
Yes. Well, thanks. I appreciate that info, Hank.
But it was all successful.
Excellent.
As far as I know.
Yeah. Very good.
Clark, why don't you tell us about your new investment and what you're learning about Copic markers?
Oh, yes. Okay. So Copic markers. I don't know how many people are familiar with them. You can buy them at Michael's. Apparently they have them on sale once in a while. I bought these on Amazon and it sort of cost me a small car. But
wait till you buy them at an art store.
Yeah, or art stores. I can only find them in the sets, which it's pretty expensive because you can't buy the individual colors. But on a number of clinics that I've seen recently, and including Greg. Greg, maybe you could even call up a couple of your pictures. He's been using Copic markers to actually color the walls of structures and so forth. And I found it very interesting. So I've used Copic markers in the paper builds, but not so much in actual wood builds. So Greg, have you got some of your shots there? Hello?
Actually, that 120 scale building I did, I used marker pens a lot.
Yeah, so here, is this the ITLA kit?
Yes, this is an ITLA building. And so we're working on MDF here, which is a very absorbent, very dense pressed board. And this is some of my tests, and I wanted to color the entire kit using Copic markers, or as much as I could. So I did some testing and quickly came to the conclusion that I needed more colors. So I did hit one of the very rare sales at Michael's. It just happened to fall at the right time. And then
I'm not going to call you what I should call you, but yes, go ahead.
This is on the back of one of the kit pieces. I did a palette so I could see what shades I have. And Copic markers, if you're unfamiliar, it's a dye in an alcohol base. And the more you layer it, the more you can increase the color and blend colors together. And so this is one hit of each color. And obviously, if you do multiple hits, you can make it a little bit darker, or you can put multiple colors together. And this is just a test of what I was doing. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but they work especially well if you're doing masonry or stonework. And this time I was trying to use brickwork, and the kit came out not too bad for not really having any paint on it.
And I'm going to ask you a question because I was going to actually send you an email. I know you sent me the basic list that you're using, but what is the reds you're using on that brick?
On that brick, I used the R24, and then I used the E9. Now, Copic's coloring is, these are codes for me. If you're using grays, they have a W for warm gray, a C for cool gray, and an N for neutral gray. R stands for red, E stands for earth colors. Now, of course, they have a whole palette. So you have blues and greens and purples and other things like that, which I didn't need in this. But for the red brick there, these two tests, the one on the right was the E43, if I remember. Or no.
There was one E9.
E9.
Yes, E9. And then the kind of more purpler one over here was one of the reds. And I ended up using this color, but once I did the entire wall with it, I toned it down by putting a little bit of driftwood stain over the whole thing. And the nice thing about these markers is you're just touching the tops of the bricks. So it leaves the valleys, which is where your mortar would be, untouched. And then if you put a stain in there or something, depending on what color you want, you're not trying to cover the red, you're just covering the wood. And it makes for a very good effect, in my opinion. So that's it.
Yeah, so maybe you and I maybe will team up and do a little clinic on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I throw one thing in on these? I know you're all saying that you only can get them in kits. There's a place in New Jersey, Jerry's Artorama. They sell them singularly. Because I just got a new bunch of them myself. And I was looking everywhere, Amazon, and you have to buy a box of like $40.
Yeah, thanks.
Hey, Hank, you can also get them from Dick Blick's. They sell individual colors.
Dick's? Okay.
Dick Blick's Art Supply. Yeah, what are you going to be using them on, Hank?
Well, right now, I'm working with this little model that Clark has us going. And yes, I put the boards on before I stained them. And I'm thinking about using these to stain these. I don't know how it's going to come out, but it'll be my first adventure with them. So, hey.
Well, I've used them for a number of buildings where I've had stone foundations or stone base work underneath masonry. And they do excellent jobs for creating the look on stonework because they don't hide the texture of the wood that you're working with. And that gives that little rough texture that makes it look like stone. I've also used them for some weathering, but it's it's trickier. It depends on what you're applying it over. So for like that ITLA kit, they work great on the MDF. He had a few small details that were cut from laser board and plywood. Now the laser board was a very, very dark color. They won't work on that. They're not like paint. They are not opaque. And the plywood, it worked on some pieces, but in some cases the wood grain was showing through. And when it was supposed to be a masonry or metal piece, you didn't want the wood grain. So they have some limitations.
Yeah.
Just
I have a question. Are they any different than the Prismacolor markers?
From what I've talked to artists about, there's no difference. The Prismacolors are pretty good, but there are a lot of other ones on the market that are the same concept, but they're just really crappy.
Like the ProMaster I got at Hobby Lobby. These aren't so hot.
If you want to get something like a Copic marker, don't get a cheap version of it because the dyes and the stuff are not the same, and
I've had good luck with the Prismacolors.
Yeah, but they're a little higher end, right? They're not the cheaper.
Yeah, they're good. And a lot of it comes to the feel of the brush. The Copics have just this really nice. They have two ends. One end is like a magic marker, which I don't use, but the other end, they call it a brush end, but it's kind of a soft pointed end. Like imagine a Sharpie with a really sort of soft end, and it's very maneuverable and very easy to use. And I've got a couple of the cheap ones, and they are not easy to use, and they don't come out as good.
Phil has put in the chat. By the way, if you're new to this and you're not following along in the chat, you should. He put in a JPEG of your colors.
Yeah, I took a shot of what you did and screenshotted it and turned it into a JPEG for folks. And also, by the way, if you go on Amazon, you can find them on Amazon as single colors. And if you look, there's a little color chart down here on Amazon. And if you click here on the reds, you'll actually get specific markers. And I think if you went and looked a little bit, you could probably find single colors, but they're not really that cheap either.
No. I've spent about $70 just doing one building with them, but there's the two tips with a very fine end, and I do like those. For you got cracks and boards, and you can go in and maybe if you want to have control so it doesn't bleed in too fast, have a little brush and put some alcohol in first, and then start pulling. That'll start to pull the dye in, but not as quickly as you went into a dry board with them. And if you have knot holes, put the hole right through, and then put the marker from the back side, and you have control, and you can just have that fine little dark spot in the middle of the knot.
Yeah.
I've also put a link to, I've got a couple how-to videos on my YouTube channel, and one of them I put out back in 2019 about using Copic markers, and it covers a couple of uses for them.
Did you have hair then?
I do not appear on video.
Around here, they charge twice as much for the first one, and the second one's free.
That's right. All right. Well, that's great. And so that's an interesting thing. Now, I see Sam is back. He either went for lunch or dinner or something, or hopefully he's not in the Midwest because, again, they're under severe tornado warnings again tonight.
Yeah, and I think they're coming Canadian way. So you guys watch out up there.
We've had the temperatures. So
they can't get across the border if they're not vaccinated.
And they have to phone ahead too. Sam, have you been here before? You can unmute.
Oops, sorry. No, I have not.
I'm sorry for your luck then. We're going to pick on you a little bit. So introduce yourself.
Pardon?
Introduce yourself then.
My name is Sam Panisi. I live in a place called Hammondsport, New York, in the Finger Lakes region in New York.
Hammondsport.
And I'm a good friend of Al Judy's, and he sort of guided me into this menagerie of people, and I've really enjoyed it. In fact, it's interesting that Wayne, I just purchased a bunch of dead wood from him, so it was interesting hearing him speak tonight.
Yeah,
we have some dead wood still here.
Let's go back. What is on your shirt, young man?
Who, mine?
Yes. What does it say?
This?
Yes. Are you a bass fisherman?
No.
Oh, here you had me all excited.
No bass fishing, even though mostly lake trout around here, not so much bass this time.
Okay, all right. Well, we have, I'm way up in northern Ontario. I used to live in the Toronto area, but I retired and moved way up north. And we have speckled trout, we have rainbow trout, and in the winter we can go fishing for them. But in the summer it's bass, baby, for me anyway. That and northern pike, but
well, it might be bass for you next week, the way the winter's going up there.
yes, it's, well, no, it'll get cold eventually. Of course, we don't have any snow. I just had my snowmobile service, so.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Clark, Richard St. Clair is a new person on here tonight, too.
Oh, Richard too. Okay, Richard, where are you? Are you
I'm
here?
right here.
Okay, Richard, go ahead. Introduce yourself. Thanks, that's enough. No.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, anyway, I'm not sure how to get to the screen.
Well, you're on. We're seeing you.
Okay. I think we actually met, Clark, at the NMRA convention in Salt Lake City.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure.
You were doing modeling masters, weren't you?
Yes, sir, I was.
Okay. Yeah, I was there building the barn.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I've been a model railroader for a long time. Just kind of got back into the hobby kind of seriously in the last year or so. I'm kind of working on structures at the moment with the intent of going for my master model railroader.
Oh no!
That's my goal anyway.
That's great. That's excellent. Well, if you have any questions, there's a couple of guys on here, Martin and myself, and would be happy to help you if you have any questions. So, whereabouts do you live then?
I live in Twin Falls, Idaho.
Oh, okay.
And I am one of two NMRA members here in this community.
Okay.
We have a club that I belong to, the Magic Valley Model Railroaders. We have a 3-scale layout at the Filer Fairgrounds. So we have an HO layout, we have a O gauge layout, an N gauge layout, and a G scale layout, which is outside.
Right. Oh, that's excellent.
We are a big attraction at the county fair.
Sure.
The fair board really likes us. They built us a brand new building 3 years ago.
Oh, you got to keep those guys friends then.
Oh yeah, no, they like us because we get. I was surprised at how big of an attraction it is at fair time.
Yeah.
People were coming through the building just nonstop. It was kids and adults, and yeah, it was great.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us. I hope you'll come out more. And we do this kind of after show, and then in a few minutes, because this is taped, we're going to probably go till about 9:45, guys, and then we'll cut off the taped after show, and then we go into the real fun, which is the after show. Yeah, we have a lot of fun. So I'm glad you could join us.
Yeah,
I'll
it's
leave
been,
Clark.
it's
We'll see
been
ya.
great. Now I
Okay,
plan to
right.
be back.
Yeah.
All
great.
right.
All right. And let's see, who else have we not talked to tonight? Mr. Thompson, you've been quiet. I had a lovely discussion with your wife about you not finding Christmas tree stuff. Or
Yeah, I know. Well, I found it. Now I've just got to get to it.
oh, okay. Well, that's good. That's good. At least I'm.
I'm going to be alive.
Yes. Yes. She said you might not make it. I said, well, he can move up here.
Well, yeah, you may see me.
So, well, you can wear shorts up here outside, right? Well,
It's been nice down here this week. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
We had one beautiful day.
yeah. It's very unusual, but oh well. But there's no climate change.
Clark, you know, I
Yes.
think it's been, I've lost count, but maybe 2 or 3 weeks since Martin's done any presentations.
I know. And we haven't even seen him with his double horns on.
Oh, good. So I'm on hiatus. So
You're
what?
on. Well, at least you can even say that.
Yeah, I can use 3-syllable words.
Yeah.
Some of us went to school.
So, hey, listen, I went to school.
Oh, those lucky ones.
I went to school and became a paramedic. Now I can even spell it.
Yeah, it's IT.
Yeah.
That's 3 years of schooling was grade 6.
Yes. All right. Anybody else want to jump in and talk about anything they're working on? Or Mr. Farquhar, I see you have still not built any more shelving for all these models.
No, I gotta get one of those. Jeez, I gotta do that.
Oh, I did. He's got a bunch.
So
You
all
were
right.
talking about Prismacolor, Clark.
Oh yeah.
I've been using them for quite a while, and I found that after they don't last long when you do it on a building. If you use it a lot, they go away very quickly.
Yeah, it sucks them in.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
But they're beautiful for there's different grades. They have 80%, 40%, you know.
Yeah.
And they also have a blender that helps you blend the colors together.
You can use alcohol for that too.
How many times can you use the blender though when you put those pens in it?
Oh, blender.
You gotta buy the wife a new blender.
Yeah, I'd be
Yeah.
buying them at the garage sales.
I'm assuming we have a lot of people that work with wood in this group. Have any of you ever heard of one of these? It's a Constantine's rare collection of world's woods, all in veneer.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's got
Yeah, I have.
roughly
Yeah, I got
50 different veneers in this box. Well, a friend of mine just gave this to me last night, said he was cleaning out something and this was left over from his grandpa or something. And it's obviously very old because it was before they had zip codes or area codes, and even before they got away from exchanges. Because on their things, their phone number is Sycamore 1600.
Oh,
wow.
So it's quite old and fascinating.
Are you Are you saying they're not on Facebook anymore?
So the key problem, Greg, is if you start using it and you run out halfway through a model, it's probably
done.
going to be a challenge to find more.
Absolutely, especially some of these. So many of these are rare woods from other places in the country. So I am not going to use any of them. I am just going to try and learn more about so many of these rare woods.
Like what?
Oh, let's see.
Did you know basswood's hardwood?
Let's see, the top 5. I have Macomba from South America.
Okay.
Limba from Africa.
Yeah, okay.
Butternut, North America.
Yeah.
Black walnut from North America.
Oh, I love black walnut.
And Primavera from Central America.
What is it?
Primavera.
Primavera.
Yeah.
You want the Latin name?
No, I was
No.
just wondering if that
Here,
comes in the white
I'll
sauce.
let Martin read it because he can
No, I
probably
can't see
pronounce
it.
those words.
I probably can. I had a couple of years of Latin in school.
Yes, and figured mahogany from Africa.
Huh.
And then it just goes on and on.
Is there any East African rosewood in there?
I saw a rosewood. I don't know if it was East African or not.
That's no fun to
Oh, I
work.
hope you're not at the. I hope you're not at the bridge trying to get over the river because the troll would say, "Is that an African swallow?"
Green, no, red, no.
That's I've worked with that rosewood and veneer. It's no fun.
Now, and the mystery of the whole lot, there is one unmarked piece in
Unlabeled.
there, which makes a total of 50, but I'm wondering if, somewhere through the last 60 years or so, somebody used one and this just got stuck in there by accident.
How much?
I have not found out what this wood is yet.
What's the thickness of that stuff?
It's 1/28.
Okay.
Now, you'd think they could do something that we're all used to working in, 1/16, 1/32, everything easily divisible. No, 1/28.
Well,
I guess
That one you
that's
just showed us?
Huh?
That one you just showed us looked like ribbon striped mahogany.
This one?
Yes.
It might be.
Is it a red?
I will try to see if that's on the list of what's supposed to be in here and isn't in here.
Could you hold it up?
While you're doing that, I have to ask the important question of the night because I've already been reminded. Ed Becker, what's for dinner?
I'll give you the same answer I usually do. I don't know. But while you guys were yakking, I was doing a little research. And Constantine is still very much in business. And they still have their 50 veneer sample.
There you go.
Hooray.
It's a lot smaller.
I put the link in the chat. So
Now they're in Florida, though.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bad place to be right now.
Well, they lived in New York. I think everyone in New York, once they hit a certain age, goes to Florida.
Yeah, they moved to Fort Lauderdale. That makes sense.
You think this is a sample box to send out to people who are building furniture and want veneers for furniture?
Yeah, and for woodworkers, so they can see what veneers they might want to use for a project or something.
Yeah.
Ted,
Greg,
what was
I'll
the
tell you-
price on it now? Did it say?
$29.95.
yeah, $30.
Okay, because I found two of the old boxes like mine, although they weren't quite as old because one of them had an area code before the phone number, on eBay for $49. So you can buy a new one cheaper than a used one.
Yeah.
I'm shocked. That never happens on eBay.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, right. Oh, yeah. Where have
So
you
what
been?
would be really interesting? We go buy a new one. We should all throw a few bucks in a kitty and have somebody go buy a new one and compare the wood in them
Yeah.
and see what species of wood are no longer, what rare species of wood from 1930 or 1940, whenever that came out. I don't know when the era, when you changed from having a sycamore to something else, but when that change happened, I mean, what woods in there are no longer available? It'd be very interesting to see, because I bet if there are 50 in that box, I bet at least 5 to 10 of them are no longer available.
I'm sure there's some that they don't, because these are just offerings of what you can buy from them in veneer. And so even if they could get samples, they probably don't offer the veneer of it anymore because it's not easily sourced or not even around anymore.
Yeah.
Or just not affordable.
Yes.
Very interesting.
I've used that veneer to make shingles with at no scale.
Yeah.
Do you know what thickness you were using, Pat?
Thinner than that.
Yeah, I was going to say this
It was
seems a
thinner
little
than
thick.
what you got there, yeah.
I've got a box of it up on the shelf somewhere. I think it was white oak.
Uh-huh.
Larry's probably got 3 of them under his layout.
Don't tell everybody. What I have got is a great big stack of business cards from a fellow that was a wood salesman, and his business cards were made out of very fine veneer wood. So, I said,
Yeah, we use those actually. You can buy.
Yeah, they're great for
buy
like
that
lining
veneer,
the inside of passenger cars. Yeah.
What'd you say,
There's a-
Daryl? Go ahead.
I was just going to say that veneer business card stuff you can buy from Lee Valley Tools. We use it in our kits. It's 22 thousandths of an inch thick birch, and it's nice, stable stuff, straight grain, great for details. And I think I think you get a box of 100 of them or a package of 100 of them for like $4 or something like that. So,
well, that's good. We have import duties on either.
Well, there's a place in Guelph in Ontario that sells veneers by the sheets.
Yeah, we have, there's a number of places. There's a fantastic place in Burlington. There's a place in Ottawa that sells it. So, okay, guys, I appreciate you joining in the after show and sharing some of the techniques. We're going to end the after show for those on YouTube. Hopefully you'll join us on Zoom in the future. So thanks for coming out and participating on NewTracks and Zoom and YouTube.